tragic accident occurred in the port of Funagawa in Akita Prefecture aboard a stone carrier which was berthed at the local harbor. In order to hoist a malfunctioning propeller blade to the water surface, 5 members of the crew entered the void space at the ship's bow and attempted to open the ballast tank gut. Of these 5 men, 4 were found dead and 1 in critical condition. The following day, the Assistant Director of Service and Rescue at the Akita Marine Safety Office, who had rushed to the scene and taken charge of the accident investigation, issued the following report. After breakfast on the day of the accident, the chief engineer used the flood pump and valve to fill the number 1 ballast tank with water. The tank was filled at about 10 a.m., and the flooding work was halted. However, the vessel's propeller blade was not exposed on the water surface. Hearing about this, the captain concluded that raising the propeller blade for repair was impossible. In order to inform the ship owner of this situation, he left the vessel to use a phone on shore. After making this call, the captain returned to the ship at about 10:30 a.m. Yet, other than his own wife, no other crew members were visible. Although he found this a bit strange, it was a holiday, and he figured that the crew had probably gone ashore to relax. Not thinking much about it, he simply took a quick look around the boat and the cabin. The captain, in other words, was not alarmed by the fact that his entire crew had vanished during the short time it had taken to make his phone call. At that time, however, 4 of his crewmen already lay dead. Time went by and the crew did not return. Late that night, though the captain felt somewhat concerned, he did not feel compelled to organize a search. At 6:30 a.m. the next morning, as the captain's wife prepared breakfast, she stepped out of the galley onto the stern deck and gazed back toward the bow. She thought she saw a human form on the bow and immediately reported this to her husband. The captain rushed to the scene and discovered one of his crew lying in the door to the cabin. The captain asked what had happened, but the man was too weak to answer and could only point with his finger. Gazing over to where the man was pointing, it looked like someone had crawled up through the area. The captain immediately descended the stairs and moved along the cabin passage until he reached the hatch to the cargo room. Here, there was also evidence that someone had crawled up through the hatch. The captain retraced that path and discovered that the manhole at the hatch to the void space was open. He entered through there and found a crew member lying face up near the hatch. Moving further into the space, he found 2 more crew members lying face up and 1 face down, all near the number 1 ballast tank manhole. A flashlight, spanner wrench, hammer, and other tools were strewn about in the vicinity of the manhole. None of the men's clothing was in disarray, nor did they have any external injuries. It thus did not appear as if a struggle had ensued or that an intruder had broken in. What then killed these 4 men? According to the coroner's report, of the 5 crew members who collapsed in the ballast tank, 4 were discovered dead on the premises. Based on the circumstances under which they died, it was assumed that they had followed each other into the ballast tank and collapsed one after another. The analysis of the gas in the bloodstream of the surviving sailors showed differences from the carbon monoxide and other substances detected in those who died. Furthermore, because this was a corroded iron tank rarely used normally, it was concluded that this was no ordinary case of gas poisoning. Rather, it was believed that the crew members died of hypoxia, the medical term for acute oxygen deficiency. A medical expert explains the frightening symptoms of hypoxia and the damage this condition can cause in the human body. The degree of oxygen contained in our air is normally 21%. People breathe oxygen into their bodies through the lungs. It enters the bloodstream and is channeled to the brain and all other parts of the system. Human cells are energized by this oxygen, enabling the body to live. Although a decline in the oxygen in the air can be dangerous, a concentration of 18% is generally considered safe. A 16% level, however, increases both the number of breaths and heartbeats needed to live. This is because the body contains a mechanism which strives to increase the oxygen in the system. At below 16% concentration, symptoms first appear in the brain, organ most sensitive to oxygen shortages. As the oxygen continues to drop, at 12%, human beings will weaken to the point of falling off a ladder. On a ship, this means they might collapse face down in the water in the hold and drown. At 7 to 8%, almost any human being will die within 8 minutes. Birds, however, continue to function normally even at 7% oxygen. This is because the structure of a bird's brain is much simpler than that of a human and is highly resistant to oxygen deficiency. The human brain is quite delicate and extremely sensitive to low oxygen levels. At 7% oxygen, human beings will immediately lose consciousness and eventually stop breathing. When respiration halts, in 2 or 3 minutes the brain will suffer irreparable damage. Even if saved, an individual in this state will suffer memory loss, or more likely, be reduced to a human vegetable who never regains consciousness. The tragic accident which occurred in the void space of this stone carrier is something which could happen to anyone who works on a ship. In addition to the airtight structure peculiar to ships, risk factors include the increase in the sheer number of vessels, the diversified cargoes being transported, and other recent trends. The result is a heightened chance that larger numbers of sailors will be exposed to acute oxygen deficiency. While ships continue to grow in size and their facilities grow more streamlined, the structures continue to be characterized by the use of iron to divide shipboard space into small sections. This can result in poor ventilation and combine with various types of oxygen-consuming substances to cause oxygen deficiencies anywhere in a vessel. As a result of the steady and at times sudden oxidation of iron, certain spaces in a vessel can fill up with oxygen-deficient air. The chain locker, for example. The cofferdam or the void space. ballast tanks, which are sealed airtight for extended periods of time, or other types of tanks. As potential sources of oxygen deficiency, these spaces must be closely monitored. In addition, when the ship's cargo consists of oxygen-consuming substances, the interior of the hold, which is sealed during voyages, can also become an oxygen-deficient environment. Corn, wheat, and other types of grain continue to breathe in transport and can deplete the air of oxygen as a result. Scrap metal, iron ore, and other cargoes consume oxygen when they oxidize. Pulpwood, chips, and other wood, like grains, deplete the oxygen content by breathing. Oxygen shortages can also be caused by the decomposing gas from human waste and other sewage. Tank interiors, where dry ice is used to smooth out water cement. Inside of tanks filled with carbonic gas, nitrogen gas, and other inert gases used to prevent explosions or extinguish fires, the oxygen content is close to zero. Killer air, which can be generated in almost any area of a vessel. Taking a single breath of this air can result in death. The only reliable defense is to strictly observe the designated preventative measures and perform all work in proper fashion. To stop oxygen deficiency accidents before they can occur, the vessel should first be outfitted with breathing apparatus, oxygen measuring devices, and dependable ventilation fans. Take proper care of this equipment and also learn how to use each item correctly. For example, it will often be necessary to enter the hold or a tank to check on repaired areas before they are filled, or to measure the cargo temperature or perform other tasks. At these times, carefully check the oxygen volume measurements and ventilation, and only begin work when total safety has been confirmed. The minimum oxygen concentration at which human beings can function normally is 18%. When this level declines, the area involved must be thoroughly ventilated to constantly sustain the amount of oxygen in the air at no less than 18%. Meticulous precautions should be taken even after the proper measurements have been taken. Ventilation is underway and safety has been confirmed. Specifically, supervisors should be stationed on the premises, breathing apparatus stored nearby, and a lifeline attached to each sailor. While working, continue to ventilate the area, take frequent measurements, and otherwise maintain vigilance against unexpected outbreaks of this potentially killer air. The first basic principle in preventing oxygen deficiency is ventilation. Second principle is to take measurements of the oxygen and confirm the safety. Third, to be doubly safe, attach the lifeline and maintain 2 or more supervisors on the premises to monitor the environment. Be sure to follow these 3 basic rules. As long as these steps are taken, oxygen deficiency can and will be prevented. If everyone had truly understood the deadly threat of oxygen deficiency and possessed correct knowledge of how to prevent such accidents, this tragedy would never have occurred. Oxygen deficiency can also occur in shipboard tanks, cofferdams, holds, and other areas. For crew members, entering such spaces unaware that deadly conditions exist can spell certain death. Having learned of the frightful menace of oxygen deficiency from this terrible shipboard accident, we are determined to alert our industry of the incredible dangers which lurk in this environment. Our goal is to prevent such an accident from ever occurring again. This statement was the final comment of materials made public following the death of 2 crew members who collapsed and died in a cargo ship's hold during a voyage back to its home port. The declaration was drafted by the ship's crew as a requiem for their fallen comrades. Contrary to the poignant sentiment of this crew, however, fatal accidents linked to oxygen deficiency continue to occur in the shipping industry to this day.